It's the Huskies and the Eagles, and it's coming up next on Mad NFL 24.
The city of Philadelphia has one of rich history and passion, and you can always count on that when you step inside Lincoln Financial Field. Today it's a matchup as it'll be the Huskies of Anchorage taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. With Charles Davis, I'm Brandon Gordon. Charles, you look at this Eagles team as they enter play here. And they've lost 3 straight here. It goes without saying, I guess. They could certainly use a win.
And how do they get a win? Because they've lost 3 straight, I think it's paramount that they get a fast, clean start to this game.
Meanwhile, for visiting Anchorage, they come into this one with a bit of a clunker last time, and a loss at the end of their 5-game winning streak. Quarters of the NFL season complete. Week 1 set our final month. We're underway in Week 14. And able to get this across the 20, but not much further as he's dropped at the 23-yard line. So out comes this offense to take over for the first time. And trotting out there, a guy who's established himself as a veteran in this league, now in his 5th year at quarterback.
Well, his ratio was good last week. Most quarterbacks are really excited about a 3-to-1 ratio, but it's flipped in the wrong direction. He threw 3 interceptions, not touchdown passes, and he only had the 1 TD pass in that game, so he's trying to turn that around.
To post to mediocre dinners on Instagram while simultaneously cropping out the men of the photos to insist on looking single to the 12 single men that still follow Instagram. But men are going to be asked, how do I make my girl happy? How do I please this woman? And I'm thinking about that a lot lately. Woman please a woman, woman please me. And I'll tell you what, a sword. I'm thinking about it so often. Give the woman a sword. And if she's unhappy with the sword you give her, I'll tell you what you need to do. Get her and you can give her
They go with Young. Trying to run inside, but nothing there. No gain on the play. It'll be 2nd down.
It takes Toho. It takes CHF.
If you have to ask why it's important to start your day early,
And he has another first down.
here's your answer.
Down to the Eagles' 45-yard line.
He begins at the funeral of a teenage boy named Darren Shin. Everyone's devastated at his loss, but shockingly, it turns out that he is very much alive. In fact, he is seen inside the coffin playing video games. The scene then cuts to the past, and Darren explains how good his life was going. He was popular in school, had cool friends and good grades, which made his parents proud of him. The only negative part about his life was his childhood best friend, Steve. One day at school, Steve convinces Darren to bunk their history class. The two then head to the rooftop, where Steve destroys several light bulbs by throwing stones at them. He then challenges his friend to do the same, but right then, their history teacher overhears the commotion coming from the roof. As a result, the boys are caught, and their respective parents are informed. Darren comes off the worst of it, as his parents had always believed him to be an ideal student. They scold him ruthlessly, and also ground him for 2 whole months. Furthermore, they forbid him from staying friends with Steve, citing that he is a bad influence. It's true, Steve's a douche. The next day, while walking to school, Darren informs Steve that his parents want him to break off their friendship. Upon hearing this, the latter is disheartened, and he accuses Darren of never standing up for himself. As they quarrel, a limousine passes by, and a man inside throws out a flyer, which lands in front of them. It turns out to be an invitation to a circus event called a freak show. The flyer claims that it is held once every 500 years. The boys recall their teacher giving them a warning against attending the show because of its illegal nature, but they nevertheless decide to go to the circus. Later that night, Darren and Steve sneak out of their homes and head to the circus and have peculiar interests. Darren is a big fan of spiders, while Steve is obsessed with vampires. At the venue, they buy a ticket from a dwarf human-like creature hiding behind a curtain. However, when Steve hands it the cash, the creature bites his hand and runs away. The boys shrug off the strange incident and walk inside the theater. It's revealed that the show has attracted people from diverse age groups, mostly adults and old people. Soon, the show commences, and the host, Mr. Tall, gets on stage. He thanks the audience for coming before presenting several strange fruits before them. First, the Wolfman appears, and his presence scares everyone. Mr. Tall directs him towards a woman in the audience, and to everyone's horror, the Wolfman tears off her hands. But before anyone can react, the woman's hand regenerates, and she walks towards the stage as if nothing has happened. Mr. Tall then introduces her as Normal Limbs, another member of the Freak Show. Next up is Alexander Ribs, a man with no apparent ribs. Bertha Teeth is the third member, and she can surprisingly break anything with her strong teeth. Ramus Two Bellies, her partner, can eat anything due to his two bellies. He even swallows a tricycle whole and spits it out in one piece. Then, a beautiful freak named Madame Truska calls Darren on stage and asks him to be her assistant. However, when she touches his face, she senses something forbidden inside of him and backs away. As the performance continues, Madame Truska wows the audience by growing facial hair in an instant, but after her act, she unexpectedly calls for the show to be packed up. Despite her request, the next act, Larton crestfully hits the stage with his spider partner, Octa. He impresses the crowd with a dance performance while playing an instrument. Steve recognizes Larton from a book about vampires and whispers to Darren that he is actually a vampire named Verhofstadt. Just then, the show is interrupted by police and townspeople, including the boys' history teacher. While the adults argue, Darren sneaks backstage and steals Octa, fascinated by its colorful appearance. But as he attempts to leave, he is forced to hide when someone enters the room. To his surprise, Larton appears with an old man, discussing the threat posed by a group of hybrid vampires, known as the Vampires. I hope you're all writing this down, because I have no idea what the hell's going on. Suddenly, Steve barges in and begs them to turn him into a vampire. He says that he hates his life because he has no one. It turns out that Steve's father went missing long ago, while his mother is a drunkard. After a lot of convincing, Larkin finally gives in and decides to taste his blood. However, the moment he puts it into his mouth, he realizes that Steve is a bad person. So, he refuses to turn the boy into a vampire, prompting him to storm off in anger. After a while, Larton finally realizes that his spider's gone missing, but before he can check the door, he freaks out and runs away. He then reaches the road where he is picked up by the same car from earlier. Inside, two men, Merlot and Mr. Tiny, start interrogating him. However, it is soon revealed that they picked up the wrong boy. They were actually looking for his friend Steve. So, they drop Darren off at his house, but not before informing him that they will be in touch. The following day, Darren takes Octa to school in his bag, hoping to keep her safe. However, before the class even starts, Steve spots them. He starts playing with the spider and accidentally drops her on the floor, allowing her to escape. However, instead of trying to catch the spider, Steve chases her with an intent to kill, causing a lot of commotion in the halls of the school. Many students run away in fear, while some even get injured. Having had enough, Octa finally decides to act, so she bites Steve on his cheek before escaping through the window. As a result, the latter falls to the ground and gets knocked unconscious because of the venom. In the next scene, Darren rushes back to the circus and pleads with Larton to save his friend's life. Worried about the repercussions of a human finding out about their existence, Larton initially refuses help. However, he eventually agrees to provide the antidote on one condition: that Darren becomes his assistant vampire. This means that he will have to leave his family, friends, and his entire social life. Darren will also have to give up going to school. In short, he will have to die. Despite the dire repercussions, Darren, who is desperate to save his friend, agrees to the conditions and receives Larton's vampire blood. After this, they race to the hospital to save Steve's life. Larton immediately administers him with the antidote, which fortunately works, and Steve starts to recover. The movie then cuts to a few days later, where Darren begins to feel his body reacting to Larton's vampire blood. He starts craving raw meat. One day, he also gets a very tempting urge to kill and suck his sister's blood. However, he ultimately refrains himself as a lust and runs back to his room. There,
I've dealt with mental and emotional struggles for a very long time. I was also dealing with the fear of embracing negative emotion.
he finds a Larton sitting in the corner, reading his books. Larton warns Darren that he needs to leave his home, as he is a threat to himself and his family. Darren doesn't want to do so. But after coming really close to harming his own sister, he decides to leave. However, he also doesn't want his parents to keep worrying about him forever, so he decides to fake his death. Later that night, on the rooftop of the house, Larton assists Darren in the act by breaking his neck. This will make everyone believe that he accidentally fell to his demise. The movie then cuts to the present. At Darren's funeral, all his friends, teachers, and family pay their respects, while Darren is alive and well, inside the coffin playing games on his phone. The same night, Larton digs up the grave and gets Darren out of the coffin, but before they can leave, Merlot arrives out of nowhere and ambushes them. Fortunately, Larton fights him off and manages to subdue him temporarily. Following the close call, he takes Darren to the freak show campgrounds, where they meet a girl named Rebecca. Meanwhile, Steve is grief-stricken by his friend's death. As a result, he distances himself from society and becomes a maniac. The pain becomes unbearable. One day, he contemplates ending it all, but just as he is about to commit the unthinkable, Mr. Tony arrives there and stops him. He mentions that he's aware of Steve's unfortunate life and his obsession with all things vampire. He then offers him a chance to become a Vampanese. It turns out Tiny and Merlot are Vampanese. They are a different race of vampires who, like Larton and the others, murder humans to feed on their blood. It's also revealed that Vampanese and the normal vampires are arch enemies. They don't see eye to eye. As Steve hears everything in disbelief, Mr. Tiny discloses something even more shocking. He says that Darren is alive and happy in the other world, something which Steve had always dreamt of and aspired to. The revelation makes the latter angry, so without a second thought, he accepts the offer. Meanwhile, Darren slowly gets comfortable in the freak campground with the other freaks. He starts to train himself and helps others with their duties. One day, Darren goes through the pictures of his old life and decides to give Steve a call, but before he can do so, Larton arrives there, snatches the phone from Darren, and breaks it. That night, Mr. Tiny visits the freak camp to talk with Larton and Mr. Tall about Darren. It turns out the boy has special agent powers, so Mr. Tiny asks him to hand them over. Despite being enemies, a diplomatic Mr. Tall politely tells him that he'll think about it. Afterwards, Larton instructs Darren not to leave the camp, as it is not safe for him anymore. He then begins to train Darren so that he can handle himself if he is ever in trouble. At first, the boy fails to lay a single hand on Larton, but as his training progresses, skills and strength develop. On the other hand, Merlot turns Steve into a Vampanese, which gives him unreal powers. The boy also becomes more evil, and his first victim turns out to be none other than his history teacher. He gave me an F because for faith. Meanwhile, as Darren begins to feel hungry, he starts craving for fresh blood. To remedy this, Larton takes him to a nearby farm and sedates him. He says that vampires never kill people, they just boil their blood. However, despite his hunger, Darren cannot bring himself to do it, so they return back to the camp. Shortly after, the freak's peaceful campground is suddenly invaded by a group of ruthless Vampanese. Chaos ensues as the two sides engage in a brutal fight, resulting in a lot of bloodshed. It becomes clear that the Vampanese are searching for Darren, and soon enough, they find him hiding inside a costume room with Rebecca. The Vampanese attack Darren and a fierce brawl breaks out, but fortunately, thanks to the timely arrival of Larton, Mr. Tall, and the other freaks, the fight is eventually broken off, and Darren is saved from certain doom. However, when the dust settles, it is revealed that Merlot has kidnapped Rebecca. The following morning, Darren sets off to find her as he blames himself for the entire incident. In the meantime, Mr. Tiny kidnaps his family, hoping to lure him into a trap. After a while, Darren arrives at his home and finds it empty. He then notices a flyer on the table inviting him to the circus. Meanwhile, Larton also decides to join in on the fight, and so he gathers his weapons. Next scene, Darren makes his way to the circus, where he finds Rebecca and his family tied and hung up on the wall. He is also perplexed to see Steve with the Vampanese. Nevertheless, he attacks his former best friend without any hesitation, while Larton also arrives and starts tussling with Merlot. As Darren has not consumed any blood, he becomes very weak.
On 1st and 10, Bonner. Over the middle, complete. That's Young. Only able to gain a couple there, and it'll be 2nd down.
He gets started here, and
Back to throw.
he gets started here, and
He throws it on the move, but can't connect as that falls incomplete.
Got the right idea there. Trying to get it to the sideline, but he let him just a little bit too much, trying to get it out to his receiver. Ends up falling to the ground incomplete.
Now a third down throw, but it misses the target, incomplete.
Like what I see so far out of this defense, because they've been showing their best coverages on third down. So far, only allowed one conversion on a handful of attempts. One area of their game plan that they've executed to perfection.
And that's off the right upright, and it bounces away, no good. And this game will remain tied here in quarter number 2. So distance not the issue there. He had plenty of leg to get it there. It's that darn upright getting in the way.
Always gets in the way of a good time, doesn't it? Because he hit it square, too. Sometimes you can bank one in if you get it on the end of the football. No such luck there for him.
On first down, Tagovailoa. And Daniels has it over the middle. Just a gain of a couple there. And it's second down. The Eagles hustling to the line, clock rolling. Going to the air, Tagovailoa. Got his man complete over the middle. It's Daniels. The Eagles going to take the first of their timeouts as they get the stoppage with just under 50 seconds remaining in half number 1. Setting to throw on first down is Tua. Well, he tries to force it in, and it's intercepted. And he'll return it to the 24-yard line.
Brandon, this is a veteran quarterback back there. He should know better than to make a throw like this. This is definitely not his best ball, and I think he knew this was trouble the second it was leaving his hand.
Back out comes this offense now late in this first half. And they've got a little over 40 seconds to work with if they want to try to put something together.
For Brittany, it's more than a move. It's a new city. It's a new role. It's a brand new horizon that's hers for the taking. It's more than a move, and we're more than a try.
To this point, I've been impressed with the work defensively. They have not allowed a lot of receivers to run free. And there's another example, another incompletion.
Try again with the arm
Speed, fast, like go. Attack, fast, painful. Pass, painful. Crossing back down, blast, painful.
Their timeouts as the clock will stop at 45 seconds to go in quarter number 2. In the middle of the field, incomplete. And he's just going to be short here, barely. Maybe by a half a foot. It'll be 4th and inches. He'll get this away into the icy winter air.
Let's walk up the shit got hits upon it. Did I see why as quick as people don't go crazy shit they love Jimmy Bennett to this society you swinging missing. Honestly, I can't promise me you won't. Wasting energy for shit. Don't look back and want to get it. Like the bullet just to bite your tongue, you don't say shit. Make your actions hard to make. Be a legend, not a shit. Obnoxious, unconscious, rapping. I see why they're not as quick as people don't go crazy shit they love Jimmy Bennett to this society you swinging missing. Honestly, I can't promise me you won't. Wasting energy for shit. Don't look back and want to get it. Like the bullet just to bite your tongue, you don't say shit. Make your
We'll send you down the coast now to Orlando. That's where we find Jonathan Coachman, ready with our EA Sports halftime report. Coach.
All right, Brandon, we'll get back to you and Charles in a bit. But first, let's get to some of these scores around the NFL here in a busy week 14.
you swinging missing. Honestly, I can't promise me you won't. Wasting energy for shit. Don't look back and want to get it. Bite the bullet just to bite your tongue, you don't say shit. Make your actions hard to miss. Be a legend. See, I can't promise me you won't. Wasting energy for shit. Don't look back and want to get it. Bite the bullet just to bite your tongue, you don't say shit. Make your actions hard to miss. Be
From there, let's head up to Cincinnati. Let's check in on the Bengals at home at Paycor Stadium. And for the moment, they trail the visiting Browns in that one. The Browns trying to gut this one out, as it would be a good victory for them if they could
missing. Honestly, I can't promise me you won't. Wasting energy for shit. Don't look back and want to get it. Like the bullet just to bite your tongue, you don't say shit. Make your actions hard to miss. Be a legend, not a myth. Shit, not this. Unconscious.
and claim victory.
Energy for shit. Don't look back and want to get it. Like the bullet just to bite your tongue, you don't say shit. Make your actions hard to miss. Be a legend, not a myth. Shit, not this. Unconscious.
right down to the wire.
Said I see why
One
the
mistake
as
or
quick
one
as
big
people
play
don't
could
believe
turn
shit
out
they love to hate, but to live society, you swing and miss. And honestly, I
Okay,
quit.
Coach, yeah, adjustments likely going to play a big role in this third quarter in what's been a tight contest so far. Set and ready to go for the second half. One touchdown apiece, 7-7 our score. And he won't get this to the 20-yard line as he's down at the 19. The Eagles ready to go on offense to begin quarter number 3. It's a tie football game here. What do you think,
Amy
Charles,
Rose, one of the best characters in the Sonic franchise, made her big screen debut in the post-credit scene of Sonic 3. Her appearance promises that Sonic 4 is going to be a wild adventure, and Amy will have a significant role. Known for her vibrant personality and her iconic Pico Pico hammer, she is expected to completely change the franchise. But what exactly is her role? Well, here's how her first scene in Sonic 4 might play out, at least based on the events of Sonic 3 and the recent updates regarding Sonic 4. A lot of fans believe that the movie could begin with Amy on a mission of her own. In the mid-credits scene of Sonic 3, Amy saved Sonic from a horde of Metal Sonic duplicates, meaning that she's no ordinary character. It's also interesting to see how the filmmakers are going to depict the character. In the earlier Sonic games, Amy is defined by her affection for Sonic. In the later games, however, she is this heroic figure who is resourceful, brave, and unafraid to take risks. Sonic 4 could easily begin with her tracking down Sonic after learning about the growing threat of Metal Sonic. Amy's first scene will probably reveal a lot about her character. We are likely going to see a brave hedgehog who heard rumors of Sonic's battles and knows that the stakes are higher than ever with Metal Sonic coming to destroy the titular character. To be honest, I don't want the movie to completely erase Amy's cheerful personality. She could be cheerful and still serious about helping Sonic and proving that she's more than just a supporting character. In that case, it would be fun to see a dramatic entrance. If the fourth installment continues right after the events of the third one, we expect Amy's first interaction with Sonic to happen during a high-stakes moment. In the mid-credits scene, Sonic is facing off against the Metal Sonic army for the first time and struggling to keep up with the powerful robots. Just when it seems like he's overwhelmed, Amy arrives. If the movie continues from there, expect to see a dramatic and action-packed continuation. I would love to see more scenes with Amy using her hammer to knock Metal Sonic. Also, such a scene would establish Amy as a valuable fighter, and thanks to what she did in the mid-credit scene, she already earned the respect of Sonic and his team. Now, let's talk about the power of the Pico Pico hammer, shall we? Amy's Pico Pico hammer is without a doubt one of her most iconic features, and her first scene in Sonic 4 would be the perfect opportunity for her to show off this powerful weapon. Thanks to this hammer, Amy is able to deflect attacks, smash obstacles, and even perform acrobatic maneuvers. Amy is a great addition to the Sonic franchise for many reasons, but mostly because of her unique fighting techniques. Unlike Sonic's speed or Knuckles' strength, Amy's approach is much more creative and strategic. Metal Sonic is one of Sonic's biggest challenges, and Team Sonic will have a hard time defeating him. With Amy on their side, they have a bigger chance of destroying this powerful enemy. But what about Amy's personality? As mentioned before, the early Sonic games depict Amy as a character with a bubbly and optimistic personality, and she is often defined by her affection for the titular character. The movie franchise, however, is going to depict her as a fiercely determined figure. We still don't know whether she'll have a crush on Sonic, but if she does, the movie could balance these traits, showing her lighter side while focusing on her bravery. The movie could also make Amy Sonic's first love interest. It would be fun to see Sonic falling in love, and the last scene of the movie could show the two of them enjoying a romantic night together, discussing their future. What do you guys think? Should Amy become Sonic's first love interest? What do you think her interactions with the team would look like? If the creators decided to stay loyal to the source material, the movie will focus on both Amy's fighting skills and her interactions with Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and of course, Shadow. Her arrival will definitely surprise the team, especially since they didn't expect her to join the fight. We already discussed Sonic and Amy's dynamic, and it's safe to say that the movie will present an empowered version of the character. We really don't expect her to be portrayed as Sonic's fan. Instead, she could establish herself as an equal partner. For her interactions with Tails, well, all entails might be impressed by Amy's creativity and quick thinking. I believe she'll quickly form a strong friendship. Knuckles might initially underestimate Amy, but yeah, over time, he'll also realize that Amy is a valuable addition to the team. Shadow appears in the post-credit scene of Sonic 3, confirming he survived the explosion in which he and Dr. Robotnik seemingly lost their lives. We still don't know whether he'll become a member of Team Sonic or if he'll continue his villainous journey, but we're definitely going to see him interacting with Amy in the upcoming film. As for Amy's role in the story, well, there are plenty of possibilities. Amy's first scene, the one in Sonic 3, confirms she came to save Sonic from Metal Sonic. While Metal Sonic might serve as the primary antagonist in Sonic 4, Amy's presence could be linked to a secondary storyline or subplot. For example, she could be on a personal mission. Amy might have a different goal. Maybe she's on a mission to rescue someone she cares about. Perhaps she's uncovering the truth about Metal Sonic's origins. Yeah, I know the second theory makes more sense, and the movie might also reveal Amy's ties to Metal Sonic. We still don't know anything about Amy's past, so she may be connected to Metal Sonic in some way. Perhaps she was there when the robot was created. She could also know something about its mysterious creator. With Metal Sonic's introduction, we also expect the fourth installment to be a bit darker and more intense than its predecessors. Maybe Amy will also serve as a beacon of hope. Shadow already made the franchise darker with his tragic storyline, but Metal Sonic is on a whole other level. I mean, he's a robot who matches Sonic's speeds and abilities, but has zero free will and is basically ruthless. Amy's cheerful and optimistic personality could offer some balance as Sonic and his friends face this big challenge. And yes, we expect to see Amy in future installments. Amy's first scene wouldn't just introduce her character, it would also set the stage for her growth throughout the franchise. I can wait to see how the movie portrays her, and it would be awesome to see her iconic hammer on the big screen. What are your hopes and expectations when it comes to Amy Rose in Sonic 4? Do you think she'll play a key role in the upcoming film? Let us know, and as always, thanks for watching. See ya.
An interesting and intriguing decision there defensively because they kept extra DBs on the field despite seeing the multiple tight end look that came out for the offense.
This was me, struggling to keep up with posting consistently on YouTube and getting less views than normal, until I found Spotter Studio. Spotter Studio is an AI software built to help YouTubers come up with video ideas, titles, and thumbnails based on data that leads to better performance. It analyzes everything about me, my audience, my past videos, the ones that overperformed, and the ones that didn't. Let me show you. So here, I'm looking at hit videos my audience is watching, and if I could brainstorm on this program, I get ideas on how I can create something similar, but in my style. Look, I was able to draft a thumbnail, find a title, and outline the concept for my next video. Spotter Studio also helps me track how my videos perform over time, down to the first 7 days. It knows what my audience wants before I even do. Using these tools makes it significantly easier to not only create high-quality content, but consistently as well. So if you're a YouTuber, I'm telling you, give Spotter Studio a try. You can get a full access free trial for a month right now.
It's a short one here compared to his tight end. 9 yards, not quite enough.
Stay to me a long time. We can use Old Spice Total Body Deodorant Spray. 24/7 fresh. Good, right? That smells great. From pits to toes, even down below. Down there. Oh, balls. Yeah.
Drama that attracted me the most wasn't the plot, but a fellow netizen asking if there were similar shows. Since the end of this drama, it has been a long time since he watched any other shows, because he got too immersed in it. I was initially curious if this was just an ordinary science fiction drama with such great appeal until I watched it to the end and realized that this drama is indeed different from typical science fiction dramas. So, I thought, should I also narrate this drama in a different way? She looked at the boy's shirt and found that the boy was missing something. The female doctor, after examining him, immediately decided to take him home for scientific research. But since the boy entered the house, the daughter screamed, the son screamed, the husband got angry, the female doctor herself was speechless, yet she still refused to send the boy away. Why was the boy so appealing? Because his appearance was destined to fascinate every scientist. One day ago, he appeared naked in the woods, his body covered in amniotic fluid, his eyes as pure as a baby's. Then he came to the city. curious about everything. Pedestrians avoided him, and then the police arrived. They found out that the boy seemed not to understand others' words and had to take him to a juvenile detention center. Here, they named the boy Kyle. Kyle watched another boy nearby, saw him pick up food and eat it, and he imitated by eating it as well. But the other boy was uncomfortable with this approach to hit him, and although he didn't understand what was happening, he was quickly knocked down, wetting his pants. The instructor saw this was not acceptable, so he called for the female doctor, Nicole. Nicole was very interested in Kyle's situation. Upon greeting each other, Kyle picked up a freshly drawn picture and, to Nicole's surprise, he skillfully reproduced the man and woman he had seen in the woods yesterday, almost like a printer. Following that, Kyle imitated Nicole's expressions, charming her. However, the instructor insisted that Nicole take Kyle home temporarily, leaving Nicole hesitant. No other choice. The instructor lifted Kyle's shirt to find that his abdomen was strangely flat without a belly button. Nicole was shocked and immediately decided to take him home for scientific research. Upon returning home, an incident occurred as soon as Nicole and Kyle arrived. The daughter came out wrapped in a bathrobe after her shower, only to find a stranger at home, which startled her, causing her to scream and run away. Subsequently, Nicole had to leave for an errand and asked Lori to look after Kyle. Unfortunately, Lori was busy on the phone with her boyfriend and inadvertently allowed Kyle to slip away. Sneaking into the neighbor's house, Kyle was drawn by the beautiful sound of a piano, tears welling up involuntarily in his eyes. Amanda, who was playing the piano, nearly had a heart attack when she turned around, prompting Kyle, who had been shooed out, to hide in the bathtub at home. Just then, Josh returned from school, dropped his backpack, and while tirelessly studying exam questions in the bathroom, he was startled by Kyle in the bathtub. Josh jumped up, pulled up his pants, and ran in a panic, accidentally flinging his study materials out, which his mother found while picking them up. She discovered a comic strip he had hidden inside. Just as the neighbor knocked on the door, Josh narrowly avoided being caught. However, the neighbor came to complain about Kyle but quickly noticed her daughter becoming entranced by Kyle's profound gaze and swiftly dragged her away. The ensuing events were genuinely awkward when the master of the house, Stephen, returned home. Nicole offered a hug. Kyle observed this and assumed it was a basic human gesture. However, during dinner that evening, Kyle suddenly spoke up.
Yo, let's get some juice down here.
Despite his impolite education in the detention center, everyone was astounded.
So, everyone taking stupid pills around here? Juice me.
Kyle managed to learn to speak in just one day and, to top it off, he recited the sweet nothings Lori had whispered to her boyfriend in front of the whole family. Lori wished she could crawl into a hole and disappear. Kyle had thoroughly offended her. A shocked Josh hurriedly gave Kyle an intelligence test, only to discover that Kyle aced every question. As a result, Nicole took him to the hospital for a checkup. After scanning Kyle's brain, the doctor was completely stunned. Kyle's brain was developed to twice the level of Einstein's. However, no one could tell whether such an active brain was a blessing or a curse. Josh speculated that Kyle might actually be an alien. That night, the parents arranged for Kyle to sleep in the same room as Josh. Josh was not happy about it at all. He felt like his personal space had been completely invaded. Little did they know, Kyle had an even bigger quirk. He didn't need to sleep at all. Late at night, Kyle wandered around the house. Suddenly, he saw Lori sneaking past him, curious. He followed her and found out that she was secretly heading out to a party. The party was filled with booming music and dancing crowds. Kyle was fascinated by what he saw and even copied others by drinking some alcohol. But it didn't take long before he collapsed and threw up everywhere. At that moment, the police arrived. Since underage drinking is illegal, everyone scattered in all directions. In his dazed state, Kyle saw Lori being taken away by the police. Not understanding much, he only knew he couldn't let Lori be in danger, so he broke through a window and stood in front of the police. When the officers told him to step aside, he made a face imitating what he thought was the fiercest animal he knew, a rattlesnake. This caused everyone around to burst into laughter, feeling embarrassed. Police let go of Lori and turned their attention to Kyle instead. Kyle, however, easily snatched the handcuffs away. Furious, the officer pulled out his baton, but not only did he miss his target, Kyle also grabbed the baton and tossed it to the ground. Left with no choice, the police had to retreat in humiliation in front of the crowd. Meanwhile, Kyle safely escorted Lori back home. The next day, Stephen was hard at work on an important project. Just as he was about to finish, a spilled drink caused the keyboard to malfunction, and the computer crashed into a blue screen. wiping out an entire day's effort. Kyle, standing nearby, stared at the screen filled with code, feeling an uncanny sense of familiarity. He walked over to another computer and, with a flurry of rapid typing, miraculously restored the project files. Stephen couldn't help but laugh when he saw it. It was incredible. He asked Kyle how he managed to do it, but Kyle simply replied that he didn't know either. When Josh came home from school, he found his room spotless, cleaned up perfectly by Kyle. Even more surprisingly, Kyle had found Josh's cherished study materials. Josh went to Kyle and asked why he did this. Kyle replied, "You said you really wanted to learn this skill." Later, Kyle approached Nicole from behind and hugged her tightly. At first, Nicole thought it was Stephen, but when she turned around, she realized it was Kyle. Apparently, Kyle had seen Stephen greet her like this before and thought it was the normal way to say hello. Nicole said, "You startled me." Kyle asked, "What does startled mean?" Nicole explained, "Startled means scared." In an instant, Kyle remembered the rattlesnake, the boys who had bullied him at the detention center, the police officer who had hit him, and the people who laughed at him.
Oh, Mom.
When Kyle softly said, "Mom," Nicole's heart melted. She hugged him tightly and vowed to protect him at all costs. At dinner, Nicole mustered up the courage to suggest keeping Kyle in their home. Fortunately, no one objected, as Kyle's kindness had already won everyone over. However, they didn't realize how much trouble Kyle's habits could bring them, chief among them, the fact that Kyle couldn't sleep. Meanwhile, a man had been appearing at Nicole's house multiple times, secretly monitoring Kyle's every move. One day, the man held a stack of files, and the photo on top was of Kyle. Kyle, unable to sleep at night, began practicing martial arts. However, he didn't realize that training the body without internal techniques could have negative consequences. From his eating habits, it was clear those effects were already starting to show. Nicole, however, believed the issue lay in Kyle's brain. She took him to see a doctor. The doctor first examined Kyle's teeth, and to everyone's surprise, Kyle started examining the doctor's teeth in return. Nicole could only smile helplessly. The doctor said it was unbelievable Kyle's teeth were brand new, showing no signs of wear or tear. This meant he had never eaten food before. When the doctor lifted Kyle's shirt, he was stunned. Kyle didn't have a belly button. The doctor immediately turned to Nicole for an explanation. Nicole revealed that she had taken Kyle in just a few days ago. She explained that when she found him, he couldn't speak at all, but within a day, he had learned how to talk. However, he had no memories of his past. Nicole then handed over Kyle's brain scans and MRI results. After looking at them, the doctor admitted that he had never seen a brain as active as Kyle's. With no other options,
Who is Selfie Cunningham?